Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular Planning Commission meeting, City of Campbell, California, September 13th, 2022. Mr. Clark, if you'd like to do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Commissioner Scissor.
Here.
Commissioner Craig. Here. Commissioner Camcarp.
Here.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Present.
Chair Ching.
Present. Thank you. Moving on to the first item, approval of the minutes of August 23rd, 22. Have we had a chance to review the minutes? Any modifications, changes? Commissioner Craig?
I'll just say that I'm going to abstain because I missed that meeting, but I wanted you guys all to know that I did watch the YouTube video of the entire meeting. 2 hours, 46 minutes and 12 seconds, I think. And it was good discussions.
Congratulations and thank you for perseverance on that. And I know Commissioner Fields
abstained because
abstained
I
as well.
was not on this commission at the time of the last meeting.
Okay, so do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented in the packet.
Thank you. And second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And a voice vote, please.
Commissioner Davis.
Abstain.
Commissioner Scissor.
Aye.
Commissioner Craig.
Abstain?
Commissioner Camcarp.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Aye.
Chair Ching.
Aye. So they are approved. Moving on to communications, agenda modifications, on any postponements. Community Development Director. Do we have any tonight?
Good evening, Robbie. Sorry, I had some cupcake on my arm. No modifications from staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to oral requests. This is the point in the agenda where members of the public may address the Commission on items of concern to the community that are not listed on the agenda this evening. People may speak up to 5 minutes on any matter concerning the Commission. Do we have anybody online? Mr. Clark? Okay, thank you. So under this section, we do have one agendized item, and actually it's pleasure in the Planning Commission resolution of appreciation to our ex-commissioner, Mr. Andrew Rivlin. We were going to put this as the last item, Andrew. But if you'd like to come forward, please, to the rostrum. We have a spare place tonight. Actually,
I see. It's a very different view here. You'll look much more attractive from far away. I'm just kidding.
So, ex-Commissioner Rivlin, Andrew, like to recognise your service to Campbell City and a formal resolution of appreciation acknowledgement of your service to the city. There's a lot of whereases on this, so please bear with us, and that's a good thing. Whereas Andrew Rivlin has demonstrated his commitment to the City of Campbell and its residents by serving on the City Planning Commission, and whereas Andrew Rivlin enthusiastically served as Planning Commissioner for the City of Campbell from 2017 through to 2022, assisting the Planning Commission in the furtherance of Planning Commission goals and policies, and whereas Andrew Rivlin has provided comment and direction to the City of Campbell on various projects impacting the development and shaping of the city. And whereas Andrew Rivlin has committed significant personal time travelling throughout the City of Campbell, actively reviewing proposed site, project and development plans. And whereas during his tenure, Andrew Rivlin contributed in his input and feedback to notable projects and conditional permits reviewed by the Planning Commission as follows. 3-story expansion of a commercial building located at 276 to 280 East Campbell Avenue. Construction and EIR review of a 4-story office building located at 17 Dell Avenue. Amendment of a conditional use permit for a business located at 680 East McGlinchey Lane. construction of a mixed-use building with residential condominium units located on East Campbell Avenue and Dillon Avenue. Plan development review permit for project included the construction of 25 single-family homes, 5 accessory dwelling units, a new private street, and landscape improvements to the surrounding area. Additionally, providing comments and participated in the review of the City of Campbell's general plan and housing element. Whereas Andrew Rivlin held a strong commitment to understanding complex planning issues, especially showing a keen sensitivity to environmental issues and working diligently to craft effective compromises and make educated, informed decisions for the betterment of the City of Campbell. Whereas the Planning Commission, on behalf of the residents of the City of Campbell, wishes to express its profound appreciation for the dedicated service Andrew Rivlin has rendered during his tenure. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Campbell Planning Commission and the City of Campbell express their sincerest thanks, gratitude and appreciation to Andrew Rivlin for his service on the City of Campbell Planning Commission on behalf of the residents of Campbell, California. Duly passed and adopted this 13th day of September 22 by acclamation. So thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it was just the greatest hits and not every single resolution I've ever voted on. No, thank you. Thank you to City Council for appointing me. Thank you to the Commission for guiding me when I was going against popular discussion. But no, it was really great. Thanks to staff. I enjoyed my time, and hopefully we'll see great things from our new commissioner. I didn't even catch your name yet.
Davis Fields.
Nice to meet you, Davis. Good luck, and I'm sure it'll go swimmingly. So thank you very much.
So Andrew, I'd like to invite you up here, maybe for...
Am I allowed to come past the dais?
For a photo in the presentation.
Oh, sure, certainly.
Right. Would commissioners like to stand up? Sure. Take a...
Sure. Wow, that's quite good. Honor of writing all this. Oh, actually, stand at the edge. Okay, well, quite verbose. Hold it like this.
There we go.
Not at all.
No, that's all right.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Also, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Also, Commissioner Shasky is not here. That's a cupcake.
Well, happy birthday. I heard it's your birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing everyone around the city. Oh, someone else would like it on their nice. Okay.
I have plenty of spares.
Thank you, Campbell.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, ex-Commissioner Rivlin, and thank you for staff for preparing that. So, with that, moving to our first item on the agenda tonight. But before I start with the items, do I have any disclosures from any of my fellow commissioners on any of the items here? No. Okay. So the first item, PLN-2022-31. We do have a slight change in our process here where members of the audience who want to speak on this matter, PLN-2022-31, the first item, have to take the oath, which will be administered by our city attorney. So anybody who'd like to speak, and this includes people online, so virtually you'll have to take the oath if you would like to speak on this particular item. So over to you, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, anyone who wishes to speak on this item tonight, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, including staff. And police officers as well. All right. Those of you standing with your hand raised, do you affirm that that, let's see, I haven't done this in a while. Do you affirm that everything that you state in this matter this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Our record could reflect that everybody did so affirm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Okay, so reading the first item, PLN-2022-31, public hearing to conduct a compliance evaluation on an existing liquor establishment, Cartoon Lounge, with late night operational hours on property located at 300 Orchard City Drive, Suite 101, to determine whether its conditional use permit, administrative planned development permit, PLN-2022-31, may be modified or revoked. Staff is recommending that this item be deemed categorically exempt under SECRA. Planning Commission action is final unless appealed in writing to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. Project Planner, Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director.
Okay, good evening. Rob Eastwood, Community Development Director. I have a very short presentation. Okay, and away we go. Okay, the item before you this evening, Commissioners, is you recognize you had this before you several months back, is a compliance hearing on Cartoon. On April 12th of 2022, the Planning Commission did have a revocation modification hearing to consider modification or revocation of the conditional use permits at Cartoon. At the time, the Commission decided to uphold reduced hours for the establishment, and that was to reduce the closing time from 2 a.m. to 12 a.m. At that time, the Commission had directed staff to bring this item back in 4 months, and we are back before you today. The intent was to review how Cartoon was doing under reduced hours, reconsider if the Commission would like to remodify the hours of operation. Going into some past performance issues, why the hours of operation were modified earlier this year. In the 6 months in the latter half of 2021, there were numerous calls of for service at Cartoon, over 82 calls from Campbell Police, a number of arrests, over 10, including intoxication, DUIs, and a number of cases of service of alcohol to minors. Per the conditions of approval, given those facts, I, as the Community Development Director in February, was able to reduce the hours of operation that was stipulated under the conditions of approval, and pursuant to those conditions of approval, I scheduled the revocation hearing before the Commission in April, in which you upheld the reduced hours of operation. So how has Cartoon been doing in the last 6 months? The intent of this hearing is to re-review Cartoon status, compliance issues, status, and based on that evidence and everything in the record, the Commission can decide actions going forward. Based on all evidence, information received from our Campbell Police Department, big change in number of calls for service and actions. So there's been only 3 calls for service in the last 6 months. Campbell PD has recognized that all those calls were actually made by our Cartoon staff themselves, proactively reaching out to the police department, requesting assistance in situations where the police could assist, and no new arrests or other issues such as had occurred in the 6 months prior. Should be noted, ABC, this was reported in April, does have an ongoing investigation on Cartoon. They have not made any final decisions. They have indicated to our police staff that they will at sometime soon, but we have not seen any reports or actions taken so far. With that, staff is recommending, based on the good behavior of the last 6 months, to restore the hours of operation to 2 a.m. We are recommending 2 conditions of approval, which will act to mitigate and hopefully prevent the past actions that occurred in 2021. One is to require Cartoon to adhere to a mitigation plan that they themselves created, developed, and submitted, that they will implement to prevent perhaps the underage drinking and some of the other issues. They've submitted that into our department. We've attached it to the conditions of approval. It's more of an operations and security plan, and the commission would require them to adhere to this. And if there's any modifications, to review those with the Campbell Police Department first. And the second condition of approval would require just close coordination between Khartoum and Campbell Police Department. Officially requires a meeting at least every 6 months between Khartoum management, security staff, and Campbell Police Department night shift patrol team in order to discuss the status of the operation, any issues, any modifications needed. And that would happen for at least the next 2 years. With that, I do want to disclose there are other options available for the commission. Again, based on what you're hearing tonight, any testimony, you can take other actions. One would be to maintain the current closing hours of 12 a.m. Another option could be a middle ground if the commission believes it wants to sort of split the baby per se, not go to 2 a.m. It could establish a 1 a.m. closing time, or if there's any other modifications the Planning Commission would like. Finally, there is the option tonight, if you believe there's evidence in the record, to consider revocation of the use permit. With that, available for any questions. I do want to recognize Captain Ian White is here, has the best eyes on the ground. If you have any questions on things that are happening at Khartoum, we rely on the experience and knowledge of his staff, and he can provide that tonight. And with that, I'll close up staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Eastwood. Commissioners, do we have any questions to either staff or Captain White?
What exactly was the timeline for when we would plan to see them back here? Was it supposed to be 4 months or was it 6?
It was, yeah. There was a delay wholly on the part of the community development director in getting this to you. So the intent was to get to you in August. There was some slip ups in getting things arranged and then one missed noticing. So this is coming to you later than originally intended.
Thank you. And one question for Captain White. When there were a lot of arrests, were those all or mostly after midnight?
So, I mean, I don't have the times for all of the 80-something calls, but as we've discussed with Khartoum staff and ownership, they're aware that they have not been open during the most problematic times, but feel that we have an understanding and relationship and communication strategy to help them in that. But I think they also understand that there are pitfalls to that as well. And it does present a challenge to them. I guess if that answers your question, those are the most busy times for our bar hours is after midnight and around closing. So those are going to be the most challenging times for a bar ownership group for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So if you were a planning commissioner, what would you have recommended,
Well, I think, the original in discussing with Director Eastwood, when we originally brought this to you, we felt that the, I guess, quote unquote, probationary period was appropriate. In the past, we've recommended just a complete revocation based on extended behavior. This was a shorter period of time behavior. And so we felt that giving them an opportunity, as I've discussed with them, we do try to have a collaborative working process with our businesses. The intent of this is to, have them be successful and create a safe downtown environment. So we really don't know, we're hoping that this time period and the conversations and the collaboration that I've hoped we've established now, which is along the lines of Director Eastwood's recommendations. One of the reasons we'd like to see them continue to meet. Our night shift changes over every 6 months. We want them to have those relationships with our team, to feel comfortable calling us when there's a problem, and to hopefully help them be successful during those hours that are those challenging times. So, they have had issues, and if they continue to have issues, they also understand we have to provide for a safe downtown as a law enforcement operation. So my hope is that they have an understanding of that, and I feel comfortable making obviously I've collaborated with Director Eastwood in this, and I think we feel comfortable with our current recommendation, but it is going to, it's going to be tracked, and they're going to have to be successful. So it's really going to come down to are they going to be able to do that? And only time will tell. So, if there are continued issues, nothing prevents us from coming back in front of you and saying, that would be our next steps. And again, collaborating with Director Eastwood, if there are problems, we will probably find ourselves back here in front of the commission. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
I got one question, if I may, before the captain leaves. I know that this is an unusual situation with Khartoum, but have you had any other instances where you've had meetings every 6 months? Has this being required of Khartoum? It seems like a good idea just in general to be doing that.
Yes, and we have had owners proactively reach out to us. I will say that I try and stress to our night shift supervisors to try and collaborate with our downtown businesses, but they are busy. It's not a requirement of the business to do that. We have had proactive businesses approach us about wanting to make sure they're meeting with our staff, but I do agree with you. It is an important aspect.
But this is the first time we're requiring the
yeah.
Okay. All right. Just asking.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I have a question for the captain. So on your evening patrols, I don't know how many exactly we have, 6 or 8 or 10 places that are open to as late as 2 a.m., right? So do you adjust your patrols to provide extra time near the late opening, the ones that close at 2 a.m. like Khartoum in terms of your patrol efforts? So
yes, I will say we try and strategically patrol the downtown area if staffing allows for that and calls for service, but that is challenging as well, because that's also one of our busiest times of nights for drunk drivers, and those require multiple officers as well. So it really just depends. Having supervised a night shift for a long time in the city, it's very challenging to dedicate resources to a specific area, which is why when we have a business that's creating a lot of calls for service, it really taxes our resources. So we try to stay on top of that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Captain White.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll open it up to the public and invite the applicant, if you'd like to come up and speak, please.
Good evening, guys. Good to see you again.
Just for the record, could you state your name?
Yeah, I'm just going. My name is Brandon Brigham, the owner of Khartoum. So it's been a long 7 months of probation, but we're happy to be back here before this body. Time is always short here, so I'll be brief. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So we're definitely happy with Director Eastwood's recommendation, that of which is supported by Captain White, to reinstate our hours to 2 a.m. We also appreciate the opportunity to show the city and the police that Khartoum can be a safe and asset to the city that has called home for almost 50 years. I think this mini crisis has brought both the relationship we have with the police and with the city into a sharper and more symbiotic relationship. Ultimately, a renewed harmony between Khartoum, the city, and the police is what we ultimately strive for. But that's not to say that we were purposely out of line with the city's values. I believe we have always shared the city's values, the main one being public safety. And I think through this crisis, we have learned a tremendous amount, and it has benefited everyone involved. So moving forward, our sole objective is simple. It is 1, to provide a safe and friendly bar; 2, to be responsible representatives of the bar; and 3, to uphold the various duties we have to the city of Campbell. We must also manage the growth that the bar will surely see from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. If and when we get these hours back. I think our standard operating procedures summarized in the memorandum delivered to each of you have solicited a vote of confidence from the police and the city. Going forward, these operating procedures are something we adhere to, and we will adhere to 100%, and will contribute greatly to our future success. So we hope that this body grants us the opportunity to 1, move forward with our normal business hours reinstated to 2 a.m., and 2, to show that we can be a valuable asset and not a liability.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Please, Commissioner Craig.
Yeah, just two quick ones, and I know we've been through this before, but I just wanted to make sure. So the mandatory meetings every 6 months with the police, this kind of is a new thing for the city, but you guys have no problem with that?
Absolutely no problem. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, and I just, on your memorandum, mitigation efforts to promote public safety, and it really covers all the bases, a lot of stuff that we talked about the first time.
Yeah.
But it's signed by the Khartoum team. Who is the Khartoum team? Yourself, I imagine, but who else?
So I'm the GM owner. This is my assistant manager, Hans Heller. We had Ivan Batnich, our head of security. Then we have, 6 or 7 other security guards, and then 6 bartenders.
So you're kind of, that's representing all of those individuals.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And just asking. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
First question I have is there was talk about last calls on the agenda, and so it sounds like you very last calls, and I was wondering what is your latest last call?
Currently, we do it at 11:30 because we close at
I
midnight.
mean, if it becomes 2 a.m.
1:30 a.m. Hard.
Okay, so that's
hard
your
stop.
latest, no
Hard
matter
stop.
what.
Yeah, we stopped serving 1:30, and we started getting everyone out by 1:45.
Okay. So the other question I have is about the mitigation policy, because the mitigation policy that you put together is, it's my understanding, it's going to be part of the resolution that we approve. And so I have a little concern about in particular, the dress code portion of it. First of all, do you have a written dress code other than this?
We have it on like a triangle sign, or whatever you call it, a tri sign that we put out front of the door.
Because to me, this is kind of very general. It's not specific, and I have some concerns about the discussion about drug dealers dress a certain way, hip hoppers dress a certain way, and these are the kind of things that you're trying to. Obviously, I want you to not be having drug dealers at Khartoum, but to me, it's the question I have is about how having a dress code that kind of generally talks about excluding people who are dressed like drug dealers or dressed like hip hoppers. So one thing I would prefer, if we're going to include this portion as part of our resolution, that the dress code is written very specifically. And secondly, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with this kind of discussion on the dress code, because it strikes me as profiling. Okay. So, I don't know what a drug dealer looks like in terms of their dress. I don't know what a hip hopper looks like in terms of dress. I have.
Commissioners, this was a question behind this.
I guess my question, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you're right. So I guess my question is, can you be more specific about what that's going to mean, and whether or not this is really the way you should be having a dress code?
Yeah, so we actually have a more detailed dress code that I should have just listed in this, but it includes like sagging your pants, flagging, which is wearing more than one solid color, or like gang colors of reds up here. There's, we try, and like no facial tattoos, because typically people come out of prison with facial tattoos. And what else?
Policies are comparable to the other establishments in the area, such as Cardiff doesn't allow anyone in athletic attire. If you have an ID, it has to be a valid driver's license, no identification cards, for example. So generally, there is some discretion due to the staff, or up to the staff, but I would say anything offensive is not allowed, anything aggressive, bad attitudes, etc. So aggressive or offensive clothing, again, solid reds, solid blue, sports attire, etc.
Hans Heller, assistant manager, if I can just chime in, I would actually suggest that, to your point, we don't want to discriminate. We don't want to profile. my recommendation would be to go the other direction rather than be specific. Just say we're going to have a dress code, and we let us use our discretion to enforce it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We did have another question. But I don't know. I'm. Yeah. Okay. So I guess you did answer my questions in terms of inappropriate dress. But I guess I'll give my opinion later on. Okay.
Please, Commissioner Fields.
You have a pretty comprehensive plan of like actions that you've taken. I'm curious, is there one in particular you felt like was the most effective in driving down the calls? And I'd love to hear a little bit more on like whatever that is. How do you see the next 12 months of that going? Are you doubling down on that? Like, yeah, I would say there's two things. I mean, getting a brand new security staff has been tremendous. Unfortunately, the people we hired in the beginning were subpar due to, hiring shortages and COVID and all that. So just better staff, smarter, more experienced doorman has changed everything. On top of that, using our scanner and eradicating fake IDs has been solid. I mean, we have a 3-step process. We scan it with a black light, then we look at it with a flashlight, and then we scan it. And, we've caught about 90 in the past year. So those on top of just, the staff is aware of the situation we're in and they're hyper vigilant. And I think that has taught everyone to be even more vigilant than we were before. And so I think those 3 things, along with just sticking your nose to the ground and just working harder, has helped. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll open it up to the public for any questions, not questions, comments.
I did have a couple more questions. Sure. First of all, on the dress code, is there do you post the dress code out in front so that people see it in advance?
Yeah, we do. And it's more specific than, that's what I was saying. It's more specific than just like, don't look like a drug dealer. Don't, it has specific instructions.
Okay. It would be useful for us to see that probably.
Okay, I can get that to you guys.
So that's posted prominently in advance of people coming into the.
Correct.
Okay. And the other thing is I saw where you're doing the scanning, where you scan and then it goes into a database.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're scanning driver's licenses.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you also post that you're doing, do people know that you're doing that that's scanned and being put into a database?
I think the actual scanner says something about that. There's a notification on the front, but we're happy to explain it if someone asks, like, where does this go? So, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any? No. Okay, at which point I'll close it and hand it over to Commission for discussion. Commissioner Fields, put you on the spot. Do you want to start off or can start at the other end?
I think in my first meeting, I wouldn't mind if we started on the other end.
I thought I'd be tough on you. Commissioner Craig.
Yeah, no, I remember our discussion in April and there was a problem, and I think, so far so good in trying to rectify the problem. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more from Commissioner Zisser on the dress code issue. I thought that the recommendations were pretty good, and then the meeting every 6 months with the police, I think, is a great idea, and I think we should do that maybe more often where problem areas pop up. So it all made kind of pretty good sense to me, and I would be in favor of giving them back the longer hours. And when problems, if they erupt again, I'm sure we can revisit the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was impressed by the low number of calls, 3 versus 82, given that it's not past 12 o'clock. I understand that it's like playing in the NFL and then going back and playing varsity high school and hey, look how we did. I get that. But to me, I think they understood how serious we are, and, as much as we hate it, we would yank the permit if it's not a safe place in our city, and so I am in favor of going with the staff's recommendation, knowing that, they have to come back hopefully in 6 months or so, or if any issue comes up that, we have to take corrective action. But otherwise, I felt comfortable with what they're doing to address the issues. As far as scanning the IDs, it's always a touchy issue, but I think safety first. I think, safety is paramount, and the fake IDs, I could see how somebody would use a real ID from somebody else and pose as that person to come in. It would be impossible to catch those unless they're going to use the same ID to bring somebody else in, and that's hopefully that scanning and in the database will flag and say this ID was just scanned 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, so hopefully you have that kind of system in place. What would tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kamkar. Commissioner Zissa.
Well, yeah, I'm in favor of the hours going back to 2 a.m. I think, the numbers look good. Khartoum has a long history in Campbell, and I've been there a few times. I remember them being here 40 years ago. So, I'm definitely in favor of us going back to what we had before. I am concerned about two things. The scanning, I don't have a problem with, as long as I believe in people knowing, being transparent, that people know that they're being scanned and that's being kept as a record. So I would like to see, make sure that the Khartoum has a way of notifying people that this scan is being done and kept. More importantly, the dress code is the thing that struck out to me, and I would actually disagree with the other gentleman. And I would rather, if we're going to vote on the mitigation, if the city is going to approve the mitigation as part of the resolution, I think that we need to be very specific about what we're approving, okay, that is acceptable, rather than a kind of a generalized thing left open for your determination. Now, I can't stop you from, determining on your own circumstances where you would vary from your normal dress code one way or the other. But for the city to approve a mitigation that includes a dress code, I think the city needs to be very careful about what it is that we're approving, so that we're not participating in something that would be inappropriate. So I would recommend having a very specific dress code listing, as you said, if you're really gonna, if it's all reds and all blues, don't get to come in. If it's athletic wear, whatever it is that you use as a specific dress code, I would rather, and to me, that's delineated very specifically, rather than, like I said, drug dealer, what looks like a drug dealer looks like a hip hopper. I have two sons who are attorneys at law, and their wives have advanced degrees and are professionals, and they all like hip hop. So hip hop by itself is not necessarily something negative. Okay, I'm not a big hip hop fan. I actually prefer John Denver. I have John Denver on my iPhone. So it's mentioned that you guys played John Denver karaoke. So that's more my thing, but I suspect that almost nobody late at night there on Saturday nights knows who John Denver is. But so I would like to recommend that we get very specific on the dress code that is the city can accept as something that is not perceived as profiling a certain group, a certain culture, and rather than having this kind of generalized thing. And as far as what the bar does in terms of when they take it upon themselves to make a determination on their own, I have no control of that. So that's my only concern, and that's what I would recommend, is that we somehow deal with that. Either pull the dress code or make sure the dress code is very specific, that's something that we can all be comfortable with and the city can approve.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a question from that for our city attorney. Businesses have the right to decline a customer, don't they? Because if you know, it is up to them. I understand, but maybe you could help us understand that particular part of the law better.
Yeah,
Not want to put you on the spot.
Yes, actually, I think that Commissioner Zisser stated the point well. Yes, the business can be selective on its patrons in pretty much any number of ways, as long as they are not discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, things that we attorneys call protected classes. As a government entity, we cannot force the business to discriminate on things that would affect those protective classes. It essentially require something that would be tantamount to profiling.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fields.
Also in favor of the staff's recommendation. I think when I reviewed all the detail, I thought it was like an unusual number of calls. It was a significant penalty put in place, but it seems like Khartoum put together a very comprehensive plan. The measures of reducted calls really sort of stood out. I also appreciate what the captain told us about we have the ability in the future, if those calls increase, to revisit this. And I think we have a precedent in place now about, you know, this is a serious thing, but the approach seems to have been just. And so I'm in favor of the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair.
Basically, from what I can tell, we asked the business to do certain things. Business has done certain things. I am generally in favor of, you know, legible rules, and it looks like it's a pretty straightforward thing. I support returning their hours of operation to go until 2 a.m.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree. Actions speak louder than words, and the issues have declined, and you know, have financial motivation to make this work. And extended hours, I'm completely in support of extending to 2 a.m. To Commissioner Zisser's point, completely understand where he's coming from. I guess we'll probably have a different view, and maybe similar to the assistant manager. Maybe we don't specify and keep it open.
Well, I want to do whatever makes sense from perspective of the city. I mean, maybe one of the things we can do is if we go ahead and approve this thing, including the mitigation, that the dress code paragraph be reviewed and considered for changes for approval by the city attorney, such that we're within compliance. It's an acceptable in terms of state laws, and that it in no way shows any way of you know, possibly profiling certain groups. I'd be okay with that, but I think as it stands, I think it needs to be changed.
Wouldn't I put the onus on as,
because the wording is so I don't know, it's it's got wording that I personally find inappropriate, but.
I can see the issue with that is that puts the onus on the city to get it right, as opposed to the onus on the business.
Well, I'm not talking about the city getting the dress code right. I'm talking about the city looking at a dress code that does not cause problems, as Bill indicated, where we can, where the city is approving of something that's in writing that would actually go against the state and federal civil rights laws that protect certain classes of people. So I'm not saying that we approve whether or not all reds or all blues are okay, but whether or not the wording is such that it doesn't cause us a problem from a legal point of view.
So potential suggestion, again, the intention of staff is just have the cartoon staff manage this in a more proactive area. Quick discussions with the city attorney. Might be two areas where we just don't want the city to weigh in areas where it shouldn't weigh into, I guess, to summarize it that way. One would be the dress code. And I think, I'm not sure if Bill wants to add more, a little bit on the type of music. I'm not sure if that was addressed. I suggest maybe potentially the other way of either A, in the condition, we could do one or two things, require a revised mitigation plan be submitted that does not include the dress code and music, and then just memorialize that. That could be a follow-up item. So just to take those parts out. And they're fair to enforce their own dress code separately. Or two, just put a disclosure in the condition of approval that the city cannot enforce any specific dress or music type that the operation enforces. So perhaps one of those two measures. It's better just to divorce the city out of that process.
Yeah, I agree. Do we have to make a change to the? Did you want to come forward, Captain White? I can open up. Let me just open up the, I think it has to be the public hearing. So if you'd like to come.
Remove that portion or leave it and leave it very broad.
Yeah.
And it is a standard safety protocol with most of our downtown businesses. And it's broad because security issues change as our games change or our safety elements change in the community. Really, the dress code is like if you had to go to a steakhouse to wear any other wear coat to be in the business. It's really about the environment, not about the individuals. It's about creating a safe environment that doesn't cause cross conflict. So it's not that people can't come in. It's you're really just trying to reduce the risk of there being any conflict while people are in the business, especially when they're drinking in the business. So really a lot of those dress codes, when we talk to these businesses, we don't make recommendations on dress codes. They're really designed by the business owner based on their knowledge of the night environment and their knowledge of what those safety risks are. So I guess I just want to provide some context because I have discussed this with other downtown business owners, and I do with other downtown business owners do enforce dress codes. We don't involve ourselves in them. But there are, they are a safety measure for the business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Close that. Commissioner Zissa.
I would just say before we get to the resolution that we include just strike the dress code paragraph from the mitigation, and I'd be satisfied with that. I think that would keep us out of it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm turning to Bill. I think there was one more note he had on music type, and we could add that in also, just to strike those two parts.
Okay, thank you. So do I hear a motion for approval?
I think Commissioner Zisser should make the motion.
Be it resolved that the Planning Commission approve a city-initiated modification to previously modified conditional use permit and administrative plan development permit, PLN 202231, to reinstate the extended hours of operation for an existing liquor establishment with late night activities, Cartoon Lounge, on property located at 300 Orchard City Drive, Suite 101, subject to the attached revised conditions of approval, with a noted change to eliminate the dress code from the mitigation document and music decisions to be made by the cartoon themselves.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah, sounds good. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. And Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Zizzer.
Aye.
Commissioner Craig.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamkar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Aye.
Chair Ching.
Aye. So that passes. The Planning Commission's action decision in finalness appealed in to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. So thank you and good luck with the extended hours. Okay. Moving on to the second item, PLN-2022-48, public hearing to consider the request of Inwali Properties Inc. for property located at 30 South First Street to allow for professional office use and bank and financial service use on the ground floor of a 3-story office building. The application under consideration includes a conditional use permit, file number PLN-2022-48. Staff is recommending this item be deemed categorically exempt from SEQA. Planning Commission action is final unless appealed in writing to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. Project planner, Tracy Tam, Associate Planner. Please, Tracy.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Tracy Tam, Associate Planner, presenting on item 2 tonight. So the project site is located at 30 South First Street, and it's at the corner of East Campbell Avenue and First Street, as shown on the slide. The site does have a zoning district of C3, which is a central business district generally applied to the downtown area, and a general plan land use designation of central commercial. In 2017, the City Council did approve a site and architectural review permit and a parking modification permit in order to allow for an addition to the building and also to reduce the number of required parking spaces. The project in front of you tonight is a conditional use permit to allow for a professional office use and a bank and financial service use, and those are 2 distinct land use categories, to locate on the ground floor of a 3-story commercial building. It should be noted that a professional office use and a financial service use on the upper floor, so the 2nd and 3rd floor, is a permitted use by right, and therefore it's not required to go through this conditional use permit process. The conditional use permit is specifically for the ground floor, for the professional office and bank and financial service use. The ground floor in which they intend to occupy, and I have a next slide that sort of shows the space, it's approximately 805 square feet, and it is fronting First Street and not East Campbell Avenue. The applicant is proposing hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And there are 2 scenarios that are planned for the ground floor. I'll show this on the next slide, but one has a lobby, an office, and a bathroom, and the other one is just one larger tenant space, sort of comprising the space that the lobby, office, and bathroom would take. So the site plan is on the left-hand side and the floor plan is on the right-hand side. And the floor plan shown here is just for the ground floor. So earlier I had mentioned that there are 2 scenarios that are being proposed for the ground floor. So the first one under alternate 1B, that is just a larger tenant space. You can see that there's no wall separating the spaces. It's just one larger space. The ground floor proposed under the 1A is you see that there is a wall dividing the lobby and the future tenant space and a future restroom sort of in that back area. And again, it's for, the ground floor is for professional office, bank, and financial service use. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow for professional office and bank and financial service use on the ground floor of the 3-story building, and find that the project is exempt under CEQA. And this concludes staff's short presentation.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. Any questions for staff? Please, Mr. Craig.
Yeah, Tracy, it's on, because this I know this is a big project downtown. We always are real careful, and it predates all of our planning commissioners. So is it required of the downtown district that all ground floors be retail?
So it is mentioned in the downtown development plan, but it doesn't necessarily require that all of them need to be retail. There was a concern when the C3 zoning district was amended that there might have been a concern with the number of restaurants downtown potentially displacing some retail uses, and in which case the zoning district was opened up for discussion at the time. Now, at the time, the requirement to put the conditional use permit for the ground floor office uses were put into place.
So I guess I'm just wondering, I don't exactly know how to ask the question. If it is maybe it's more for our discussion. But so we talked to a leasing broker and also the applicant's letter saying that this is not a good location for ground floor retail. But the conditions now are pretty much the same as they were in 2017 or whenever this was approved. And I know that's before your time with the city too. So I didn't know if that was a big issue at the time that they really wanted retail in this location, because if retail is going to work outside of the main street downtown, this might be one of the few places where it could conceivably work, although the experts tell us that it wouldn't work. Do you know what the history is? I mean, is this an especially important location to increase the retail profile downtown?
So I would say the priority is probably East Campbell Avenue, just because it is the main corridor to downtown. It's sort of these side streets are more branches, if you think of East Campbell Avenue being the stem. And so most of the activity does take place on East Campbell Avenue, where there's a lot of visibility for pedestrians. It's also for vehicles. On the smaller streets, it's less, per the conversation with the broker, it's less viable for a couple of reasons. The frontage, so the visible storefront frontage is not that large. And so as far as having visibility, it would be difficult for a retail tenant to sort of draw people in. And because where it's located, it's next to a city parking lot. So as far as foot traffic, there's not a ton of reason to be on that portion of South First Street, which is why staff does support the application to allow for ground floor office in this space due to those limitations. Also for retail and restaurant, they do require some what they call in the industry back of house space. So usually for restaurants, it's like prep area, the kitchen area, really the working area that visitors come and don't see. And so depending on the needs of the tenant, sometimes that space needs to be a certain size to be able to accommodate all of the activity that happens that the customers don't see. And just due to the configuration of the tenant space and the floor plan, it is quite constrained because you do have areas in the back where the existing restaurants would be using. So like Opa's building or the Opa's business, I think Willard Hicks, and there's a couple storage areas back there. So just the depth of the tenant space too makes it difficult for a restaurant or retailer to locate in that space just because there's just simply not quite enough room.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was a great explanation. One final quick question is just, and I can't find the part in the staff report, but because we're looking for very different types of uses downtown, I take it that the staff recommendation for approval is based in part, in fact, on the fact that there are no other banks downtown. Was that an unusual use for downtown?
I wouldn't call it an unusual use. I think there is it's not quite a bank, but there is a photography studio that may be seen as not retail or restaurant either. That's also located in the downtown too. But I wouldn't necessarily call a bank an unusual use in a downtown. You know, after all, it is providing a service within the downtown area.
I mean, I guess I was saying if we had a bunch of other banks, then there might be a reconsideration that we might not want another bank, I suppose, but that's a discussion for later. Yeah, thank you. Done.
Just to be clear, they're not just putting an office on the first floor. They're developing the entire 3-floor section as offices, and we just need to approve conditionally the first floor office component of that.
Correct. Yeah. The second and third floor will be used for professional office and bank and financial institution as well. But because the C3 zoning district doesn't require the upper floors to go through the conditional use permit for those two uses, the review tonight is for the ground floor for the two use categories.
Thank you.
Well, that answered the one question I had, but the other question I have is that it looks to me as if there hasn't been a decision as to whether they have tenants or not in terms of how they're going to use this. So am I right in saying that, and that it could go either way, where there's a tenant on the first floor only, and then they have the lobby with the elevator for the second and third floor tenant? Is that what we're talking about?
So I believe there is a potential tenant. I don't know if I can say who. I think the applicant may be able to supply that information, but essentially the conditional use permit is not tied to user, in the sense that in the future, let's say if this prospective tenant does move in, and let's say if they move out in the future, now the space on the ground floor is allowed for professional office and bank and financial services. So essentially the way that the alternate, I think it was 1B, floor plan is set up, it could allow for two separate tenants.
Yeah, so the way it's built, it's finished, right? This is a finished, the building is finished inside and out, right?
Well, I believe it's still under construction, with the contingency on this conditional use permit then needing to file for a subsequent tenant improvement for the ground floor space itself.
Okay, so that hasn't been determined yet, whether it's going to be the lobby, have the lobby with access to the elevator versus not. Okay, so that's still up in the air.
Correct. The tenant wants to retain that flexibility, which is why there's the alternate floor plans depending on the tenant needs. They want to be flexible to respond to that.
Okay. Okay. And this isn't necessarily a bank. It's some kind of financial institution. That covers a number of things. It's not necessarily a walk-in bank. So it could be, I don't know what it's under financial, whether insurance companies are under financial or hedge funds. So I guess we'll have to wait and hear about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you. So actually, could it be a retail bank where people come in and deposit cash and take cash out? Because that kind of operation would also require other services, you know, maybe I don't know, armored card service, you know.
Right. So that's sort of using an example, like a Bank of America or like a Chase Bank, and more retail, I suppose, in each, or I guess more individual customer facing, that would be covered under the use category under bank and financial institution. They are lumped together. So it does include, you know, like a Chase Bank or something like that. And also, to Commissioner Zisser's point, also other financial institutions like hedge funds, things like that. So it's all covered under the same use category.
So it could be a retail bank, just if that's what they decide to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the public. Would the applicant like to speak?
Sure.
Hey.
My name is Donnie Wally.
Yes, please, if you could.
Office is down the street. Thank you, staff, for the work, not just on this, but
I think we first talked to Kurt about this project, Kurt Heinrichs, in 2008. So, and at the time,
with the recession booming, or recession doing the opposite of booming, ravaging retail especially, we wanted to just remodel the existing Oddfellows building. And Kurt said, there is no way I'm going to approve you coming in and not, and leaving us with a missing tooth in our smile. And he wanted a 3-story building, and it took us another decade, but we did it. And building that building and putting that glass and steel in the air during COVID, when I was concerned whether office tenants would ever come back, was terrifying. And we would have these weekly meetings with our leasing brokers, and there was a tenant that was looking for 40,000 feet. Then there were 20,000 feet. Then they were maybe 15, which we have about 12,000 feet. Then they were 10, then they were 5. Then they were not at all, no office. And so to be able to announce that we have Charles Schwab coming to and has signed a 10-year lease to occupy this building, and is going to do a tremendously fabulous build out and use this to attract and serve the incredible wealth that's a part of this community and valley. It is going to be one of their marquee Bay Area sites to really bring people in. And I've got more to say. Can I keep going? So it's really, I think, a fantastic thing, because their density is going to be really pretty low, because there's going to be a lot of individual meetings and space, as opposed to some of the other tenants that we had looking at it. We're set up in more tech environments where they really load a lot of employees in. We're retail developers, and we tried to produce something really high end and boutique-y, and really feel proud of what we were able to accomplish, and proud that a picture of our building was actually on the mayor's State of the City. So it was great to work with staff and choose art, and it's really been a fun project. But one thing we didn't do very well was size the lobby. If you go by the building, we've got 10,000 of the most beautiful square feet I've ever seen up on top of the building with outdoor space. But you walk into the lobby, and it's just not sized for the quality of tenant that we've been able to attract. And so that's what Schwab wants. They love the space, but they really want more presence. And so they want to use it as both a lobby, but they want the flexibility on an office component there, because they will likely have some staff down on the ground floor for greeting people. And staff is right to approve it both ways, because while this is a 10-year lease and we hope they'll be there for decades, the reality is that the CUP runs with the property. And so should Charles Schwab leave at a point, then this would allow us the flexibility to address one of your questions about what happened in 2017. In 2017, the zoning was such that only the first 50 feet off of Campbell Avenue were retail, because just as an example of how finicky retail is, one of the objections that certain members had against the original design was the setback of the OPA and Moe's building that we purposely pulled back to create that patio. And the worry was that being just whatever that is, 25 feet off of Campbell Avenue would mean that those buildings those tenants would fail, and we would create a dead space, because that was too far off of the drag. And as an example of that, the cheapest space in a mall is the space right next to Nordstrom's or
or Macy's, because by the time they're there, they've got blinders on, right? Nobody wants to go in there. And so the same is true with Campbell Avenue or any main facade or Paseo. There's really no businesses other than, there's a lot of salons on your side street because other than the ones that are grandfathered in, they're not allowed to operate on Campbell Avenue. And so, and financial services were originally something that was allowed 50 feet off. And that was really how we had things designed, but things change and here we are looking to change them back because I totally agree with staff's assessment that 800 square feet just isn't a viable retail space. It cuts out, when we do.
If I could ask you to,
what's that?
If I could ask you to wrap it up a bit, please.
Okay, sure. There. I mean, there were some other questions here, but I think those are the main ones. What was it? What is it? What will it be? And please, thank you, staff, and I hope that we can welcome Charles Schwab shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Imwali, before you leave, if I can ask you just a couple quick questions. And off the top, I don't have any problem with the financial use there, but so the reason I'm asking this is not kind of to play devil's advocate because this is a conditional use permit.
Sure.
Financial services are fine on the upper stories, and that's fine as it should be. But something makes me think that maybe there's something that was happening in 2017, 16, 15, or whenever that we're missing here. That there was a special push to try to get retail there. So my question for you is that when you were building that building, did you indeed envision retail on the ground floor? Was that the original intent or no?
No, we always thought as office and when the building was approved, retail was only required within 50 feet.
Okay, so my question would probably be for the staff is why is it required to have retail that we have to do with CUP? Because it really shouldn't be any issue, it seems to me.
So for Mr. Imwali is correct in that the old C3 ordinance did restrict retail uses along, or not restrict, but I guess only allowed retail uses along Campbell Avenue and had the distance requirement for other uses. It is a conditional use permit because ultimately this is the downtown area in which generally retail uses do occur, not to say that that is the only thing that can occur, but when these office tenants do come in, we do need to look at it a little more strategically as far as locational requirements, if this is going to impact other retailers in the area, because the general plan and also the downtown development plan do have an emphasis on retailing East Campbell Avenue. I believe at the time of discussion, when the C3 zoning district was being contemplated by the Planning Commission, I believe staff had, in the draft at the time, I believe staff had wanted to prohibit professional office uses, but the Planning Commission felt at that time that was overly restrictive, and so recommended the conditional use permit approach instead, just so when it does come into the downtown, they can be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, right, okay.
This might be a specific sort of implementation question, but will there be, I think one service we don't have a lot of downtown is like ATM machines. We have farmers markets, we have Oktoberfest, we have a lot of cash. Is that potential part of this?
I know that Charles Schwab has not finalized their design, but that I have heard at different times that was something that they wanted to be allowed to do, but I don't know if that's a part of it. They're not putting in a traditional bank.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
First of all,
could I just being aware of time, and we only have one item. Could we keep it to the point?
Is the Schwab on Hamilton going away?
I know, or I believe they're consolidating a few offices. I don't know exactly where.
And we do have one existing Schwab and half a mile away.
Yeah,
so,
I don't.
But that's all I have. Other than if you could talk them into putting the Bank of America ATM in there, I really like that.
Sure. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the public or online? Thank you. I'll move it over to the discussion for Commissioner Cray.
Yeah, and I think it's fine. I'm just asking the questions. I know there's a big push, for want to be more vibrant retail, and the restaurants are taking over everything. And I didn't know. I was just really trying to go out of the back of my head if there was this an issue that, hey, they really want to, let's force it a little bit and make sure there's retail here. But I don't think so. I think Schwab would be, of course, a great addition to downtown. But a financial service in general in that location, I think it's a nice project. It really looks nice. And I think it's fine. I know it's just there's no parking. There's the public parking garage, parking lot right there. But I think there would be enough parking for that. And I think it would be a plus. And I don't have any issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemker.
I think it's a great project. I'm happy to hear Schwab will be moving into downtown, and good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner Zissa.
Yeah, I think it's. Actually, I see how it's really too small for a retail, and we got lots of retail vacancies right now, so it's not like we're. We got some other ones to fill up. I think it's and Schwab's a great name. And hopefully they'd be there a long time. And the parking thing, it's like it's the parking. There's parking. Maybe they'll direct your employees to park at the First Street parking garage on top, because there's plenty of parking there. It's only 2 blocks away. So I'm excited about this, and it's a nice looking building, by the way. Nicely done. Thank you.
Great project. Echo, nice looking building. I'll also plug, I thought, in particular, the public art. This was something when I was on the Civic Improvement Commission, we got to weigh in on, and was, I think, just all in all, like a really great project that cares about the character of the town. I think it's going to add to the downtown. So in support of.
Thank you.
This seems like exactly why we have a conditional use sort of option for this sort of thing. This is a particular space that would not work as retail, but it would work as a lobby or an extension of the upstairs office. With that in mind, I support this application.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for approval? Commissioner Cray's mastering his iPad.
Sure, I will move that the council adopt a resolution reference attachment 1, approving a conditional use permit PLN 2022-48 to allow for professional office and bank and financial service use on the ground floor of a 3-story building, and finding the project category exempt under section 15301 of the California Environmental Quality Act at 30 South First Street.
Second.
Thank you. And vote please, Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Zisser.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamkar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Aye.
Chair Ching.
Aye, and that's carried unanimously. Commissioner's action is final unless appealed in writing to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. Thank you, and congratulations. Good luck with Schwab.
Thank you.
Moving on to the third item, PLN-2022-32, public hearing to consider request by Metro Design Group for a property located at 440 East McGlinchey Lane to allow conversion of an existing single-family resident to commercial stroke industrial use and the construction of an approximately 760 square feet storage building with associated site, parking and landscaping improvements. The application under consideration includes a conditional use permit with site and architectural review, file number PLN-2022-32-32. Staff is recommending this item be deemed categorically exempt under SECRA. Planning Commission action is final unless appealed in writing to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. Project Planner, Senior Planner Daniel Famer. Please, Daniel.
Good evening. Hi, Commissioner Fields. I'm Daniel. Sorry, we didn't.
Nice to meet you. I've been getting your emails for years. It's very exciting to meet you in person.
Pleasure. All righty. Before you is an application for a conditional use permit with sign architecture review for property located at 440 Eastman Quincy Lane. This is a 10,000 square foot parcel on Glency between Christchurch and Campbell Technology Parkway within the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District. The site is currently developed with an existing non-conforming single-family residence that would be modified as part of the proposal. So the application specifically includes two components: conversion and alteration of the existing single-family residence to industrial commercial use, including associated site parking and landscaping improvements, and then construction of a 760 square foot storage building on the site. In terms of the site layout, the existing residence would be modified by removal of the existing attached garage that would allow for construction of a widened two-way driveway to the rear of the property. And then you do have the new 760 square foot storage building located at the rear with reduced side and rear setbacks. With regard to parking, the site would now provide 6 vehicle stalls and 4 motorcycle stalls, which are counted as a single vehicle space in the city's parking ordinance, and that complies with the requirement for the property to provide 7 parking stalls. And then the site would be fully landscaped with commercial level landscaping consistent with the state's water efficiency guidelines. Here we have the 2 floor plans showing the interior configuration of the buildings. The existing residence would be converted to a combination of office and storage area. And then the storage building would be primarily for material storage as well as some area for refuse storage. Here we have the elevations showing the modified single-family home, kind of the removal of the garage on the right-hand side, and then installation of a new ramp that leads up to the doorway. And then as far as the storage building, it's a very simple purpose-built building made of CMU blocks. In conclusion, staff does recommend that the Plan Commission adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit with sign architectural review. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions for staff? Please.
Daniel, just one question. If it's appropriate to ask, right next door to this building, I think it's 420, Quincy, there's a similar, almost exactly the same situation, single-family home, non-conforming single-family home that's acting as a office for, actually, it's a construction company, different construction company. So I'm just wondering, and it doesn't have the storage, but other than that, it's the same. So has that gone through the same motions as this project at all, or you know? Or?
I don't know that off.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, this is occasionally done. This area had historically been residential. So
yeah.
I mean, usually these buildings are normally removed and rebuilt, but.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to public. Do we see or anybody online? Nope. I'll close it. And Commissioner Fields, do you tempted to lead us on this one?
Without precedent, it seems like a positive thing to go from non-conforming to conforming, and based on what I read in the staff report, I'm inclined to be in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Zizza.
Yeah, I reviewed this on the SARC along with Commissioner Buckbinder, and I think it's fine. I have no problems or concerns, and it actually kind of cleans up the site. There'll be new landscaping and everything, so I think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Just a point of order. I was actually not at that SARC meeting. I was in Chicago. That was the week I was in Chicago, and I was like, why don't I remember seeing this at SARC? And that's why.
Thank you, Commissioner Craig.
Yeah, I just say, yeah, I think it's fine. It's nice to get the extra landscaping, and it's obviously a non-conforming single-family home there, and it makes some decent use of it, and no problem with that storage facility. It's right next to a blank wall, so it's no big deal. I don't think so. It's okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kumko.
I'm also in favor of staff's recommendation. I don't have an issue.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm impressed by the sort of adaptive reuse that's being done here, where the kitchen becomes the break room, that sort of thing. And I believe this is an application of the reduced side setbacks for M1 parcels that was brought before us recently. So I think it's cool that I recognize that. Apart from that, yeah, going from this is a residential use in the middle of an industrial park to this is an industrial use in the middle of an industrial park seems like a perfectly good idea.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution reference attachment 1 approving a conditional use permit with site and architectural review to allow conversion of an existing single-family residence to commercial/industrial use and construction of approximately 760 square foot storage building.
Thank you. And second? Second. Thank you. And Mr. Clerk?
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Scissor.
Aye.
Commissioner Craig.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamkar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Aye.
Chair Ching.
Aye. Thank you, and that's passed unanimously. The approval is final unless appealed in writing to the city clerk within 10 calendar days. So thank you. Do we feel comfortable proceeding to the last agenda item, or did we want a couple of minute break? Sure. Okay, we'll adjourn just for 3 minutes. I'm right in saying just gentlemen, yes, no ladies, yeah. So moving on to the final agenda item for night, PLN-2021-150, public hearing to consider the request GKW Architects Inc. for property located at 523 Union Avenue to allow construction of a 7-unit townhome development and creation of 7 private lots and 1 common lot with associated site, parking and landscaping improvements and removal of an 18-inch (DPH) coast live oak tree straddling property line with 805 East McGlinchey Lane. The property will provide 1 townhouse unit that will be restricted for sale to a moderate income household pursuant to the state density bonus law, and is requesting a waiver and/or reduction to the development standards applicable to the R3 zoning district that would physically preclude construction of the project. A concession to eliminate the frontage utility undergrounding requirement and use of the maximum vehicular parking ratio. The application on the consideration include a site and architectural review permit with a density bonus tentative subdivision map and tree removal permit, file number PLN-2022-32. Staff is recommending this item be deemed categorically exempt on SEQA. Planning Commission action is final unless appealed in writing to the City Clerk within 10 calendar days. Project Planner, Senior Planner, Daniel Famer again. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you again. This is an application for a site architecture review permit with density bonus, a tentative subdivision map, and a tree removal permit for property located at 523 Union Avenue. This is a 11,000 square foot parcel currently developed with a single family residence located on Union Avenue between West Valley Drive and East McGlinchey Lane. It's located in the R3 multiple family residential zoning district and the high density residential general plan land use district that allows residential development up to 21 to 27 units per gross acre. The applicant's proposal is multifold. The primary permit is the site architecture review permit that allows construction of the 7-unit townhome development. And that's associated with the density bonus request. That includes provision of 1 moderate income below market rate housing unit. And that would allow waivers from development standards applicable to the R3 zoning district that would physically preclude the project from being developed, such as setbacks. It also includes a single concession to eliminate the frontage utility undergrounding requirement to allow for a lower construction cost. And also the applicant is proposing use of the state density bonus maximum parking standard that supersedes the city's local parking requirements. Since these are townhomes, the application also includes a tentative subdivision map that allows creation of individual fee simple lots for each unit, as well as a single common lot for the common driveway and common landscaping areas. And then lastly, a tree removal permit to allow removal of an 18-inch coast live oak tree that straddles the property line at the rear. The building would physically be within the footprint of the root zone, and its construction would effectively kill the tree, so it needs to be removed. In terms of site layout and parking, you see a single row, townhome row that has access through a shared driveway. These units are quite narrow with tandem parking. You would have, again, the 7 private lots and 1 common lot. Each private lot would also include a small private patio space on its own parcel. And then the common lot that includes the driveway and shared landscaping would be managed by a homeowners association governed by new CC&Rs. In terms of unit configuration, these are 3-story units. 6 of them are 2 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, approximately 1,900 square feet, including the 2-car tandem garage. There is 1 ADA accessible unit that has a larger area that allows for a ground floor bedroom. That unit is 2,500 square feet and also includes a 2-car tandem garage. In terms of design, the overall approach is fairly traditional with a hip roof punctuated by gable features. The townhomes would have front and rear balconies and small entry porches. With regard to materials, you're looking at hardy texture panels painted in gray and white, slate standing seam metal roofing, and brown window frame doors and accents. In conclusion, staff does recommend that the Plan Commission adopt a resolution approving a site architecture review permit with density bonus, attend a subdivision map and tree removal permit, and finding that the project is categorically exempt under CEQA as a infill project pursuant to section 15.332 of the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Questions for staff?
Having the one moderate income unit, was that based on some external like process or regulation? Like why is it one of 7?
Sure. So state density bonus law, which is a law that effectively provides developer a number of incentives and concessions and an increase in density that allows a project to go beyond the density that the city otherwise allows. That's the bonus part. Those different incentives, those carrots, have a relationship to the percentage of below market units that are being offered in the project. So in this particular case, the applicant isn't actually seeking the bonus, they're just seeking some of the other incentives. And so the relationship there is they provide that one moderate level unit, they get what they're proposing. In larger, more complicated projects, the math can get a little more challenging, but here it's a fairly simple one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just ask the same question, just slightly differently, Daniel. So does the presence of the one below market rate unit, does that trigger the state density bonus law?
It does. So that provides them unlimited waivers to any standards that physically preclude construction. It allows them a single concession, and it allows them the reduced parking requirement.
I'm kind of asking this only because I wonder how much of a precedent this sets or example, because I know the staff did a lot of work on this project. I remember our earlier discussions. So in this case, though, it was zoned, the city had already zoned that land. So we wanted more units. We actually wanted more units than the applicant originally had. So we're not adding more total units. In fact, he had to do extra to add the units. So, but the state.
Well, so there's a couple of different things. What was happening before during the pre-app is that there is a disconnect between the city's general plan in terms of the number of units are allowed within the density range, and then what the actual R3 zoning district says. There are different modes of calculation. The general plan allows more than what a plain reading of the R3 section says. And when there's a conflict between your general plan and your zoning ordinance, then your general plan holds, and that takes precedent.
I guess I just, Resident of Campbell, I guess, would they look at this? I don't know if this is a discussion or a question, but would they look at this as saying, boy, there's a lot of waivers granted for a project for one moderate rate unit. That'd be one way to look at it, or they could say, hey, you know, instead of getting one house or 2 houses, we got 7 units really, and we got all those, so we got more needed housing. So I guess that wasn't a question. It was kind of my thinking out loud, but just to try to understand that a little bit.
Correct. I mean, in a lot of ways, this does reflect the reality. The R3 zone district is quite restrictive. And the general plan says you can do up to 8 units, but you have all these barriers to that type of development, which is why the project involves so many waivers. Initially, this application had been submitted as a planned development rezoning, but in coordination with the applicant, we did decide that a better approach was to leave the zoning as is and pursue a concession waiver approach.
Let me ask you, and I'm reading, you know, the staff report. It does look, and I remember, I think you guys did do a lot of work on this, a lot of good work, and we wound up with a pretty good project here. But do you think that this? So my question for you is, have you learned any lessons for future projects? Is this going to help us do more similar types of projects, do you think?
Yes, I mean, a big lesson here is that our traditional zoning districts clearly need a lot of improvement. I mean, projects should not require this level of deviation for them to be viable.
So just a quick editorial comment, connecting dots. If you'll remember your last meeting, we had the excellent presentation by Commissioner Buckbeiner and Cam Carr. I'll say this is exhibit number 1 of why you can't do missing middle housing or certain housing types. And so another example of issues with our codes, and I'd say from staff's perspective, the proposed cures or new objective standards that we're working on that will actually allow you to do housing like this in traditional zoning districts.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding is they didn't have to do any below market rates because they were building less than 10 units. There was no requirement.
Correct.
They just voluntarily did that so that they would qualify for the density bonus, right?
Correct. Yeah. So in this particular case, there is no bonus, but they do qualify for the concessions and the waivers and the reduced parking, all of which is advantageous to the project.
So I really appreciate the fact that they're doing 3 stories. To me, that's great. That gets a little bit of a smaller footprint. If they had put a elevator in the units, is that going to get them more waivers or concessions from the city? The fact that because an elevator would allow more units to become ADA compliant, and so you don't have to go up the stairs, you can just get an elevator, And I know elevators are expensive.
I suspect the cost of 7 elevator systems would be prohibitive and also just eat up a lot of square footage within the building.
Okay. But let's say they wanted to put in like 2 of them. Would the city look favorably to that, or?
I mean, there's no prohibition from a developer proposing private elevators. I mean, it's generally not done because it's so costly.
Right. Thank
you. So, as I understand it, the general plan supersedes specific zoning rules. And the specific zoning rules are the things that prohibit this from being feasible. Did they decide to use the density bonus to avoid like going through a more complicated process? Was that just the simplest way to do this, to bypass the zoning rules that are preventing us from meeting our general plan densities?
Not quite. So initially, this was a plan development rezoning, and generally the density bonus, one of the biggest advantages beyond the bonus is the reduced parking. So that was the primary incentive here, was the reduced parking made this a lot more viable rather than the city's general parking requirement. But it was through the review process that we realized that just keeping the current zoning would be just more expedient.
And secondly, I didn't see anything about this in the project. How is trash pickup being performed? Is the trash truck going to go down the private street? Oh, correct.
Yeah. All right. And they have trash storage within their garages.
Okay, thank you.
Just correct me if I'm wrong in terms of questions. So, yeah, because people are asking about how this got there, and it's my understanding this was a 5-unit design in the preliminary application, as I recall, and that didn't meet the density requirement, and that the commission and the staff recommended going up to 7 or 8 and then getting 1 BMR. And so we've ended up with, because of the code conflict. So we've ended up with 2 more units, which includes 1 BMR. Otherwise, it would have been 5 market rate units. So whether you like it or not, it's like we ended up in a better situation in terms of the number of units and a below market unit. So that's my understanding. Is that correct?
Mostly at the initial pre-app, they were actually under the density range. The density range is the 21 to 27. So that requires either 7 or 8 units. And
that's what I was saying, because it was 5 when they.
Correct. And that reflected the disconnect between the zoning standard and the general plan.
Right.
Thank you. There's no more questions. I'll open it to public. Please, sir.
Yeah, my name is Raja Pallela. Good. Thank you. My name is Raja Pallela, 1216 West Hacienda Avenue. A couple of quick questions. The properties on Union Avenue, if you see the neighboring properties, they are commercial properties. So these are more for my education. I'm trying to ask these questions. why couldn't this property be converted to a, multi-use or mixed-use kind of
Yeah.
zoning?
Roger, for this particular session, we invite comments rather than questions. If you have questions, I'm sure staff will be very happy to address those offline.
Okay, so the comment I have is like, we are going for like 24 units per acre, like this is a 10,000 square feet unit when we are going for 7 units. So if we translate that into an acre, that's 24 units. But if we see the new housing element, the lowest we have is at 20. So, if someone has to jump hoops to make this kind of stuff, required density to meet the densities, maybe even on the housing element side of stuff, the minimum density should start at 24 instead of like 18 or 20 as it is now. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention. That's my only comment. The others was questions. Maybe I can talk to staff later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's great comment. And please do address any questions to staff. Any question? Any members of public? Okay, I'll close it. And so we don't actually have the applicant, I assume. No.
They are online.
Oh, open it up again.
Wherein, Gia, you're able to speak.
Oh, no, I'm just participating here if there are any questions. Yeah, I'm the applicant, Gordon Wong, the architect. Thank you.
Hi, Rowan. Can you hear us? We can't hear you if you're speaking. We're not seeing the mute sign up, so I don't know. We've got an issue with your.
Jenny, you know how to unmute me? I don't think I'm on the camera.
I'm sorry if you can come. If you make it through a bit later, we can open it up again. But at this stage, I'll close it. Okay, Commissioner Crane.
We already talked about this project. I think Commissioner Zisser had it correct there. Kind of an unusual situation. So it's not, we're getting some units that we want. Less parking than we would have gotten under the old ordinances, but that parking was really overparked, and this is really plenty. I think the design is fine. I think there's enough parking. I think they did a nice job with the end cap that gives the the facade on Union Avenue, so it looks pretty good there. I think it'll be a good project and a plus for a site that really could use some redevelopment, and I'd be in favor of it. One thought I did have, we kind of have our checklist of stuff that we kind of, like, you get the bicycle parking, you got the drought resistant landscaping, do you got the solar energy? One thing for our checklist, I think, is these new projects really should, if it's feasible, I don't know how expensive it is, to have the EV recharging automatically as part of the approval process. So maybe we can put that on our list of on our checklist for the future. Just a thought. Anyway, I think the project's fine, and I like it. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, great. I'll reopen it up. Excuse me, fellow commissioners.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm Gordon Wong, the architect, the applicant. Sorry, my microphone wasn't working, so I switched computers. I'm just here to participate. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
I think they're calling in.
Yeah, I allowed them to.
Yeah, your mobile is muted. We can see from the symbol.
Do we just have our volume turned down here? We haven't heard anybody from online so far, I think.
Everything seems to be connected.
Anybody able to hear me?
I'm sorry, we still can't hear. Again, if you'd like to come back, still open to reopening it, but I have to close at this stage.
Nancy Tepperman is asking to speak.
Yeah, sure.
Just going to say that I could hear him
Nancy,
fine.
can you hear us?
I could hear him fine. I just wanted to let you know that online I could hear him.
So then the problem might be with us.
Yeah, you can see the green outline shows up on them. That means that like they are speaking. We're just not hearing them.
Okay.
So I've actually got a question for the applicant pertaining to this. So I think it's important that we have access to the applicant.
I think, if the commission would like, two things. I think the attorney would say we are meeting the Brown Act requirements. To continue the meeting, I know it's important to hear from the applicant. I'd advise, if you want, we probably have to take a few minutes break and work with IT to see if we can reboot the system. But it's the only thing I'm thinking, but I don't think we can do this in real time. We're going to need a few minutes to try and diagnose what the issue is. If you want to take a break.
Yeah, let's go give it until past. So I've got something I think is a real issue for this development. I'd like to ask the applicant. So we'll just take a break until past.
I wonder what happened. Oh, beats the heck out of me. That his phone. Is he picking up?
Hello, you've reached Daniel Fama, Senior Planner.
Warren is talking. Someone says Warren is talking. Yeah, we should call Warren. I wonder why they can't hear me.
I'm probably pronouncing your name incorrectly, but can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's Gordon Wong speaking.
Oh, you guys got me now. Okay. Yeah. Are we still in intermission, or are we?
No. If you would like to say a few words, I think we may have some questions for you as well.
Sure. It's just yeah, this project was driven by the requirements. We had a multi-family building first, which switched to a 5-unit residential, then to a 7-unit. And the research was between me, my colleague Warren, Daniel Fama, and yeah, this was the best solution we were able to put together. So any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, I've got one. And Daniel, could we put up the drawing or the rendering of the front of the property, please?
I want to call Ware just to make sure she's on.
We're testing Campbell's IT abilities tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know what you see. I can see the. You probably can't necessarily see this, or maybe you can. We're on the slide which is entitled Design, which is the frontal elevation of the building. My question is, if I understand this correctly, you have the driveway immediately outside the door entrances. And what worries me, and this may be mitigated in the design, but I can't see it, is what happens when kids run out of that door and a car is coming down. Is there, what stops the kid running straight out in the road? The door's open, it's a hot summer's day, and you know, unfortunately gets hit by the car going into the drive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we did inset the door. The view from, there's no obstruction of view. So hopefully that's going to be something that helps that out as well. We will have an HOA. We will have precautions about that. We're going to do some pavers down the road. So hopefully that signifies it's not a place of speed. But with the tightness of the lot, it's a very thin lot. This was the best option to get a private driveway down. It's not a big driveway, so it's not a place where anybody could really get acceleration because it's a dead end. Yeah, any obstruction to views would probably be the worst case in this scenario. So we don't have any of that.
Yeah, I was thinking of like a 3-year-old or 5-year-old kid will not wait. It'll go straight out that door. Mm-hmm. And somebody will speed, right? It's guaranteed. So I'm personally very worried about that. First of all, for the context, I love the development, really like to see this going forward. I'm very, very worried about this. Having multiple kids, and they'll just do that if I was living there. Not least animals, dogs, whatever.
Yeah, I understand.
I feel uncomfortable with that. I don't know when my fellow commissioners share the same concern, but I feel very uncomfortable about that.
Now, I'll just add in terms of the site constraints. I mean, this is an exceedingly narrow site. I mean, it barely fits to have the 2 tandem parking spaces plus the driveway and any semblance of a small patio area in the back. I mean, it's unfortunately, it's a challenging. Sites like this have some compromises, and just also as a reminder too, this application is subject to the Housing Accountability Act. So our ability to impose requirements and are not clearly already on the books and objective is severely constrained.
If it's a cause of a specific event for public safety, then that is grounds to reject the application, I understand.
Well, it's a little tighter than that, actually. It has to be specific public safety grounds that are already published in advance.
If I may, so we can certainly condition approval on things. We can't just turn it down. But for example, if your concern is cars moving quickly through there, we could, I'm not, add a speed bump.
Yeah. And I do not want to try and find a reason to turn it down. I'm concerned about the potential for a serious accident here. So I was just clarifying the objective reasons for denial rather than wanting to deny it. But anyway, so I'm going into going into this debate rather than questions. Okay, we can talk about this in the discussion point. So apologies, I'm doing that. Any other questions?
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to have a response, for the issue you brought up. But I can do that at the next opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other public comment? Okay. At which point I'll close the public hearing and open it up again. And I think I was with you, Commissioner Kamkar.
Thank you, Chair. So the issue you bring up, I think, is very valid. It's just that, as Daniel said, this is a very narrow, as a transportation engineer. No, I'm talking as a transportation engineer, as your colleague, but the sense of speed comes when you feel you got nice wide open, nice wide visibility, and that's when most people speed. When it's a narrow lot, you see a dead end coming, everybody, slows down. Of course, there are accidents which are can't be prevented, but one of the issues is when garbage truck backs into the space, to collect the refuse and then go forward. Unfortunately, there's hundreds of these cases throughout the city. At the street I live in, that's what garbage trucks do. They come in, they back into the long driveway serving 4 or 5, townhouses or homes, and then, come out, and any one of those cases, an accident could happen. Just that with the beeping sound and with the proper signage, they can prevent it,
reduce it, maybe.
So, yeah. So
can I ask another thing? Vice Chair alluded to this. Is there any, in the current plans, is there anything about putting speed bumps in there? Physical, rather than just markings on the road, physical.
Or I would also say like textured road so that it's not as smooth.
I mean, in terms of speed humps, I'm recalling the fire department might have some concern about those because it can make it a little challenging for their vehicles to get into the sites adequately. But just going back in terms of, if a family has a young child, I mean, nothing prevents them from modifying that door to have a two-way lock. I mean, if you have young children in the home, you have to take certain precautions, and probably modifying that door so it can't be opened by a child from the inside would probably be one of those.
Well, I'm thinking of the days I left the door open. I think it always happens. Right?
Yeah, it's also, I mean, bear in mind too that, the ground floor is really just the garage. I mean, the living spaces are on the second floor. So the child would have to run down the stairs and out.
So clarity, if we had specified speed bumps, that would have to then go back for approval with the fire department.
I mean, you could condition it contingent upon fire department approval.
Right.
And there might be a way to modify the speed bump so that it doesn't obstruct their wheels.
If I may, this driveway is too short for fire department to pull in, because if a fire apparatus pulls into this driveway, it needs to have a turnaround to come up. So
actually, the property is so narrow, it doesn't actually trigger the turnaround requirements.
Exactly. So for that reason, the fire apparatus will never pull in. They just park in the front, and then the hoses, they have 150 feet.
Okay, so speed bump shouldn't be an issue then.
Well, right, except that speed bump creates issue for probably the garbage trucks, and the vibration and every time it goes over the issue.
Just as a note, I live in a set of townhouses, and there's speed bumps to get to the garage side, and the garbage trucks go over those.
Yeah, I've got speed bumps outside my house. They seem to use them as a challenge, actually.
So
they can get a bit of air.
So I have a suggestion that might, so perhaps a condition would say, at the time of final permit issuance, applicant shall work with staff to implement measures intended to slow traffic and perhaps warm of interfacing with pedestrians using measures such as speed bumps, texturing, landscaping, and signage, subject to the approval of the community development director. So without over design today, if you want to put a condition like that in.
I endorse that.
Yeah, sure. please, if you'd like to speak, maybe on this subject.
Yeah, I just had a couple ideas. So on a very similar project, we had a back out space that was kind of dangerous. There are flashers you can install and open the garage, and the car's backing out. Could be one solution. Of course, the sign and the speed bump's a great one too. A more drastic solution would be to put the front door at the back of the project, but that would eliminate the private yard space. But there is another project similar on Union, 262 Union, has entrances on the back of their unit. We could go that direction because the fire department has fire ladder access in those yards anyway. So if we were allowed to put the front door at the back of the unit, it would separate the driving and the entryway. So those are a couple options we could use to facilitate that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. No, that's good ideas. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions? We are now. Right. Commissioner Zissou.
So actually, I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of that issue myself. So it's a good issue to bring up. I mean, I guess I looked at it as it's a long driveway. I mean, I've never really been in favor of sticking 7 units here. I mean, it's like, you know, like stuffing in 7 units in a fairly small parcel. And I think that becomes part of the problem is because it's 7 units, 7 doorways, and it's a long driveway. And I don't think people are going to be speeding, but the question is, you don't have to be speeding to hit a kid, right? You can just back out and the kid's there, right? We hear about it all the time. So I think it's a valid concern. I don't want to be suggesting solutions myself. I mean, you know, I go up, I walk down the trail and I see the 3-story developments on you know, off the railway, you know, by past Campbell Park, south of Campbell Park, and they have their front doorways on the back, you know, which I always thought was kind of weird. You know, you actually walk and you're facing the trail, the front doorways. So I guess that kind of thing is possible. I guess the other possible, just to throw out an idea, is to have a gate that's a little entryway. Is I guess you could have gates on the front door. As a possibility, although I'm not in love with gates on front doors. But I think it's a valid concern that we should be thinking of. And the only thing I brought up in SARC, which is minor compared to this, was the fact that these face a big, well, at least 3 or 4 of them face this big wall next to it. It's a commercial building. It's not a, you know, you've got a balcony that you're sitting out and looking at a brick wall, a big wall, you know. So there is something in there about considering putting up, you know, trellises and stuff like that. So at least that's in there. So that was my major concern when I looked at this from a SARC point of view. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Fields.
Like the project, like the density, agree with the concern. The solution in particular, doors in the back, seemed interesting. So even outside safety, that you're not dodging cars on your way into your front door, I think was interesting. But obviously, you know, that's a suggestion. So
thank you. Vice Chair.
I think I'm really excited about this project. I think it's a good template for future development. I think it's also is a great input to our upcoming residential design standards. Nice segue into a somewhat later topic. I think the best way of keeping people safe from cars is to simply not put people in the same place we have cars. So for that reason, I endorse the idea of putting the people door not next to the car door on the opposite side. Again, referencing the place where I live, we have, you know, the garage doors are below and on the back, and the front doors are just, you know, open out onto a walking path, which I think is a lot nicer. And I recognize that trades off against having private open space, but I think that's in addition to being a safer design, a more pleasant design, that it makes it more welcoming to walk out of your house as opposed to drive. Yeah, that's all I have. I think this is an excellent project. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I believe, just if the applicant is here, when do you expect, after approval, when do you expect to have it built?
Am I still on?
Yes.
Oh yeah, right away. So if we can find that solution, I'm pretty sure we can drive this thing through right away to go to the building, then go up.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, just finishing up. Yeah, I think it's a really good development. Great to see below market rate housing and especially challenging site. So my intent isn't to prevent it, but just find something maybe a bit safer. I like the option of the separating people and cars. If fellow commissioners were in agreement, we change it so that you put the front door at the back of the property and separate the two. Could we specify that in the conditions?
I mean, it's a fairly radical change. It requires a complete reconfiguration of the interior layouts in terms of the stairways and the relationship to the garage, removal of the back patios, new pathway.
Say no.
I mean, anything is possible. I can't guarantee to what extent what it's going to look like, since we obviously would need to work with the architect to see what that level of design change would result in. But certainly the level of design changes the commission is willing to defer to staff is at your discretion.
And realistically, if let's say I was living there and my entry door was on the other side, I'm just going to use the garage door to go in and out. It's much more convenient. So how usable will it be, even if it were on the opposite side of the building away from? So I don't know. I'm not.
So I'd be a little bit concerned about leaving this to discretion, making it discretionary and approving it. Does it make any sense to delay this approval for coming back for some other ideas about how to deal with this, whether it's changing all the architecture or doing something to the existing architecture and the existing driveway? Because I'd be concerned with the major change, which is a major change, to put the front doors on the back and eliminate the patios, which I'm not sure we would be thrilled with either. So that's a big deal. If there's a smaller solution, I'd be open to hearing about that. I just don't know whether we should be resolving this tonight without knowing what that's going to be. If we all think that this is that important, which I think it is a fairly important issue myself.
Yeah, I understand. I guess this would mean delaying the project because it'd have to be rescheduled for the next an available date, not necessarily the next available date.
Well, if it helps, I put in two buckets. I mean, my thought is texturing, landscaping, signage. I think I heard the applicant say something about a lighting system is all pretty minor. And if the commission is satisfied with those measures, you could delegate it to the back end of this project. If you are considering the more radical architectural approval, I would concur with staff and the other recommendations that you'd want to bring this back for further review.
I would suggest whatever we do, we delegate to staff so that this doesn't have to come back around.
Thank you. And speaking of signage, there are these speed limit signs is if you are going faster than whatever you set, it starts blinking at you and, catching your attention, even though those are for the public roads, but something like that would get someone's attention. Hey, you're going too fast for the, environment.
It's probably when it's going to be traveling slowly anyway. So I think we've got a question. We can officially can delay it. I guess I'm probably not in favor of that.
Yeah, I think if there are minor mitigations with the existing design, I'd be okay with letting the staff work with the designer to come with that, whether it's speed bumps, whether it's signage, flashing lights, that are good solutions. I'd be okay with approving it based on that myself.
Yeah, well, you've lasted this long, Roger. Let's have a comment.
I used to live in San Diego. Brand new construction, Blank Mountain Ranch, it is called as. All new homes, right? You have alleyways, you have houses, 2 rows, right? This is like half of it. This is the alleyway you're talking about. We used to have door in the front and the garage. We never entered from the front door. We never left from, we always come from the garage. The kids run out of the garage. That's how we come into the garage was our front door to come and go into the house, right? I understand your concern, but these kind of questions come from the lack of even visiting some spaces. Like you go visit Milpitas, new constructions. You go visit Fremont, new constructions. It will change your perspective on how these things. Kids are actually, what is stopping a kid from running out of the garage door? Nothing, right? I totally understand your concern, very valid concern, but I think it's just an artificial one, and it's not real. There is nothing that is stopping a kid from running out of a garage. Nothing that is stopping a dog from running out of a garage. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, coming from the UK, I used to live in one of those places, and unfortunately did see a child run over. So that's where my concern comes from, right? Okay, so I would go for letting the staff work on this rather than bringing it back.
I would as well. Yeah. Definitely. I think that's fine.
Okay, so do we need to put that as a special, modify the motion to specify? Vice Chair, did you want to have a go?
Just a sec. Okay, I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution referencing attachment 1, approving a site and architectural review permit with density bonus tentative subdivision map and tree removal permit, finding the project categorically exempt under section 15332 of CEQA pertaining to infill development projects, with a condition of approval that the applicant work with staff to come up with a traffic safety plan for the private street.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Scissor.
Aye.
Commissioner Craig.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamkar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buckbinder.
Aye.
Chair Ching.
Aye. Thank you. So that is carried unanimously, and the decision is final unless appealed in writing to City Clerk within 10 calendar days. So that's the last of the items on the agenda. We do have an additional item, which is the report of the Residential Design Standards Subcommittee. I believe that's Vice Chair Buckbinder and Commissioner Kamkar.
Started and maybe you can finish it. So we did have, thank you. We did have a meeting with the Community Development Director, Stephen and Tracy, and we went over what our, I guess, guiding principles would be, or what items we might want to start with. And I guess parking, was one of the hottest topic. So we're going to start with parking, helping staff evaluate, not evaluate, but research what other cities in the county are doing and how they're dealing with the parking standard issues. And so, Adam, if you want to add.
Yeah, Commissioner Kamkar pretty much covered it. Because we're not going to be combined with city council folks, it seems that our best contribution will be to sort of get into the weeds and work directly with staff and the consultants. The first thing we're doing is assisting with research on parking. So far, the best thing I found a couple of case studies. There's a really impressive map of parking reform mandates and their outcomes at parkingreform.org, which I'm looking forward to presenting / writing up. And yeah, we'll also be attending the future developer sessions. I think the next one's on the 28th. And we will, once we have actually done something, we'll report about it here.
Thank you. And I love that, because it's not just for making more work for the staff to report to you guys, but you're actually going out and assisting in areas maybe that we didn't have the resource to fully research. So I think it's that's a really good idea, and applaud you for working with the staff and your enthusiasm. So thank you.
Thank you.
Which leaves us to the last point, report of the Community Development Director.
Okay, not much to say. I'll try and get you out of here by 10. First off, again, welcome, Commissioner Fields. We had a nice orientation with Commissioner Fields about a week and a half ago. Hope it was informative. And we've put together a brand new PowerPoint to help onboard commissioners. Might help. We can probably just distribute it around all commissioners if it's a useful resource. Other than that, the only last thing I have to report is we did publish yesterday the public draft general plan, six years in the making, and the draft environmental impact report that evaluates both the general plan and the housing element updates. Draft environmental impact report's out for a 45-day review period. Comments are due by the end of October. Again, our intent is once we get all the comments, get a response from HCD, we'll be back to the Planning Commission and the Council probably in November timeframe to revisit the housing element general plan and final modifications. And nothing further from me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And
I have a question.
Please.
There were two, I didn't get to sit in on them. There were, you know, on Zoom, there were two get-togethers. One for public and one for the developers, right? Curious as to whether anything of interest came out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the residential design standards, we did our outreach, and we've done a couple things, have an online survey, went to the farmers market, had 2 outreach meetings. One was a broad community meeting. Attendance was a little less. I think we only had 15 folks attend. And then we had a meeting open to all, but it was targeted for developers. The content was a little more tailored. We actually had 60 participants come to that. And again, the intent was generally the same, well, a little tailored, but as we go into the residential design standards, getting a sense from the public, what kind of building types they prefer, do not prefer, architectural types. We've shown a lot of different examples in different categories, say from the duplex all the way up to the stack flat multi-level building of different types of building massing and design. And our intent is, before we dive into this, to get feedback from folks on aesthetically, you know, what do they think works best in Campbell? So both meetings were oriented around that. I'd say the developer meeting was a little more targeted towards, of course, the developers who want to do projects and getting their feedback on how they've worked with objective design standards in other jurisdictions, what's worked, what hasn't, and the highest priority things to focus on. So all that came out of that. One thing, and we can push it out to the commission as a resource, we're doing a quick check-in with the council next week, and we have a report that synthesizes some of the public feedback, and I can go ahead and send that link to the commission.
I actually attended that session. I just thought it was really well run. And I was actually surprised by the public consensus. I know it wasn't a ton of people there, but people actually sort of rallied around specific designs. And I was impressed that sort of a diverse set of people from the public all sort of had a sense of what felt Campbell-esque on the call I happened to be on in the breakout room.
Thank you. If that's it, I'll adjourn this meeting until the next regular Planning Commission meeting on September 27th. Thank you, everybody, and good night.